This is a solo Master Lost sector and I can run around punching ads in the face like some sort of ninja. Now this is the second hardest difficulty mode in the game, and the only thing harder than this is a Grandmaster Nightfall or Master Raid. So in this video we're going to be going over a new updated Hunter Arc melee build for Season 16 to use this year during Witch Queen for Year 5, and the background gameplay of this build will be a Master Lost sector to show you how you would effectively use this build inside of endgame PvE activities, whether that is a Lost sector or a Grandmaster Nightfall. Now personally, I wouldn't take this into a GM because the melee just wouldn't be strong enough to insta-kill GM minor ads, but this build will be extremely effective up to master content. Now this video is being sponsored by USMMO. They offer Destiny 2 Silver at a cheaper rate, so if that's something that you're looking for, then feel free to check them down below along with my discount code. Otherwise, stick around here in the video where we'll set up this build so that you can punch some ads in the face. Roll the intro. Now guys, firstly I want to mention that if you do like these new and updated builds that I cover here weekly on the channel, then be sure to check out the full playlist of other builds down below that you might be interested in, as I do cover the latest builds here every season. But this build, it is a classic Arc melee build for the Hunter, and there are a few different approaches of using this build in PvE, which we'll get to in just a moment. But this build will allow you to run around slapping ads as it is a melee build, and if you really wanted to, you could complete master content as a melee only run, although I wouldn't recommend it. Now you'll probably see me die a few times in this lost sector, which is completely fine because no build will make you 100% invincible. But this build will make it much safer for you to melee ads, even in those master activities, where without this build you probably wouldn't achieve that. So you can use Assassin's Cowl, which I recommend, and we will be using this exotic for the build today, but you can also use the Bombardiers, which will blind enemies, or you can use Delilah's Handshake with a 1-2 punch shotgun, and with that setup you can kill Legend and Master champions with just a few punches, although I don't recommend this, because firstly, as you can see, you just can't insta-kill master minor ads with a single punch. You'll need to work your way up to those buff punches, so in order to insta-kill minor ads and champions, you'll need to at least get the first 2 ads killed with a melee final blow, to then start that chain of crazy melee DPS. But achieving that in a master activity is just going to be stupidly hard, because you just don't have the time to sit there punching an ad, as they will kill you quickly before you finish them. So that's why I recommend using the Assassin's Cowl to get that invisibility, which gives you the time to run away and then come straight back before they even notice. Realistically though, you don't want to use this build as a 100% melee only, so you will mostly use it to benefit you in the endgame with invis on an Arc Subclass, but in the most simple terms of how this build works as a melee only build, you would run in, get a melee final blow, dodge to get the melee back, then get a melee final blow to then get the dodge back, and just repeat by chaining those 2 abilities. While doing that, each melee final blow will trigger health regen, give you the invisibility, give you health and shields, and spawn elemental wells that will buff your melee's damage, while each melee kill is stacking up additional DPS. So in a master activity, getting the first melee kill is going to be the hardest part, but once you've got that stacked damage, you'll be set. Now getting into the setup of the build, the first thing that you'll want is the Assassin's Cowl exotic, but you can use Delilah's Handshake or the Bombardiers, but for this build to be effective in endgame PvE, go with Assassin's Cowl. This reads: powered melee final blows grant invisibility and restore a portion of health and shields. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the duration of the invisibility and the amount of health and shields restored. This, with the health regen triggered by a melee kill, is huge. If you're low on health and you have an ad like a thrall near you, punch that ad and then you're invisible with full health and increased DPS. It's as simple as that. Really good exotic, but the next thing you'll want is to make sure that you are a top tree Arc Strider, as this comes with combination blow to stack up that melee DPS and trigger health regen, and then combat flow where melee kills recharge your dodge, but we'll be using Gambler's dodge so that our dodge will recharge our melee, so it's just an infinite loop between the 2 abilities. Now you could pair this build with glaives if you wanted to, but for me, basing it on a Master Lost sector, I'd be using an Arbalist for anti-barriers and match game shields, a Grid Skipper or Funnel Web for the Unstoppables or overloads, and then a linear fusion heavy for my main DPS weapon. My anti-clearing would be the Arc Staff Super and my primary weapons, but guys, the first mod on the list is melee Wellmaker. Pretty obvious as we are a melee build, so getting melee kills will spawn us Arc Elemental Wells, and then we'll use those on Well of Irons to increase the damage we do with our next melee attack. We're also running these Seeking Wells, so that those elemental wells spawned will move towards us. The reason for that is because if we're running around melee and everything, like Gambit moats, those wells may get pushed back slightly, and just having them come to us will make it much better for us. But if you don't want to use this, then you can swap it out to say a Volatile Flow, because the next mod is going to be a Reaping Wellmaker to spawn a Void Well on weapon kills after dodging, which we'll do all the time anyway, as we'll be chaining between those two abilities. But we're going to be using those Void Wells on Well of Tenacity to gain damage resistance for a short time when picking that up. Definitely worth using as we are a melee build running around. Moving to the normal mods for the helmet, I've left this one open so that you can use anything. You could use a Dynamo if going into easier content, but for the gauntlets you'll want your champion mods. Then in the chest, go with double damage resist mods because you will need it, especially in endgame content. But for the legs you want your scavenger mod for your heavy weapon, which I think I'm actually using a linear and not a rocket, so yeah. Small mistake there. But for the class, I'm using a Lucent Finisher for heavy ammo when finishing a champion. And this is good not just for the heavy ammo, but when you do that finisher, you also gain invisibility too. If you're going with glaives, use the suppressive glaive mod as these are really good to use as well. But the last thing on the list here is the stats. Make sure to try and max out recovery to 100 because that is really needed, especially on a hunter with a melee build. But if you manage to get that to 100 and you want to master this build, then intellect as the second stat to 100 would be ideal, and then discipline as the final third stat if you can, to get that triple 100 build. So this build isn't the best hunter build in the game, but it's definitely a fun one to use if you do want a melee build that works good in endgame content, so that you're not limited to just using this build in simple, easier content. Now as I mentioned, you can use a ton of different exotics with this build, but using that Assassin's Cowl really makes this worth using in master content as shown in the Master Lost sector. You may have a few deaths here and there because, I mean, you're in a master activity, so dying in general isn't rare, especially when you're caught off guard while on a melee spree. But overall, it's a good build to use if you do want a Hunter melee build for this season. But guys, that there is your Hunter Arc build updated for Destiny 2 Witch Queen in 2022 for Season 16 or Season of the Risen. As always, be sure to view that full playlist for more top best builds to use in Destiny 2 for this season. And let me know down below what you think of this one, and will you be using this build anytime soon. But guys, I've been Divide, thank you all so much for tuning into this one. Have a good afternoon or morning, and I'll catch you all in the next one.